Hi Ritika, it's great to see you again. How have things been since our last session?
Hi, Dr. Sakshi. It's been more of the same, honestly. I've been feeling pretty low, and it's hard to see a way out of it.
I hear you, Ritika. It sounds like the heaviness you've been feeling is still there. Today, I want to introduce you to cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which is something we'll be working on together. It's a way to help you better understand how your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected. How does that sound to you?
That sounds good. I've heard of CBT before, but I don't really know much about it.
No problem at all, that's what we'll explore today. The basic idea behind CBT is that the way we think about situations affects how we feel and behave. When someone is feeling depressed, it's common for thoughts to become negative or distorted. Those thoughts can then lead to feelings like sadness or hopelessness, and behaviors like withdrawing or avoiding things you used to enjoy. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, definitely. I can see that in myself. Like, I keep thinking that I'm not good enough at work, and then I feel even worse, and I end up avoiding tasks.
That's a great example. It's this cycle of negative thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. What we'll work on in CBT is identifying those negative thoughts when they arise and learning how to challenge and change them, which can help improve how you feel and how you act.
Okay, that makes sense. So, how do we start?
First, let's try to break down a recent situation. Can you think of a time this week when you felt particularly low or upset?
Yeah, I had a meeting with my manager a couple of days ago. I've been falling behind on work, and I was already feeling anxious about it. During the meeting, she gave me some feedback, and I just kept thinking, I'm a failure. I can't do anything right.
That sounds like a really tough moment for you, Ritika. Let's break it down into three parts: the situation, the thoughts you had, and the feelings that followed. So, the situation was the meeting with your manager. What thoughts went through your mind during that moment?
I kept thinking that I'm not good enough and that I'm failing at my job. I felt like no matter what I do, I'll never be able to get things right.
I see. Those thoughts sound really harsh and critical. How did those thoughts make you feel emotionally?
I felt awful. Anxious and sad, mostly. Like I wanted to just disappear. I felt embarrassed and ashamed too.
That must have been really hard. So, your thoughts of "I'm a failure" led to feelings of sadness, anxiety, and shame. Did you notice how those feelings affected your behavior afterward?
Yeah, I kind of shut down after that. I didn't do any work the rest of the day and avoided replying to emails. I just felt like it didn't matter what I did anymore.
It's interesting how those negative thoughts impacted both your emotions and your behavior. This is what we call a cognitive cycle. The thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all influencing each other. The good news is that we can work on breaking this cycle by addressing those negative thoughts.
That sounds good, but how do I stop thinking that way? It feels automatic.
It's normal for these thoughts to feel automatic, especially when they've been part of your thinking for a while. What we'll work on is becoming more aware of these thoughts when they arise, and then challenging them. One technique we use is called thought challenging or cognitive restructuring. This involves questioning the accuracy of those negative thoughts and coming up with more balanced, realistic alternatives.
Can we try it with that thought I had about failing?
Absolutely. Let's take the thought, "I'm a failure." First, we'll ask some questions to challenge it. For example, what evidence do you have that supports the idea that you are a failure?
Well, I've been missing deadlines and not doing as well at work as I used to. That feels like failing.
Okay, so you've noticed some struggles with deadlines. Now, what evidence do you have against the idea that you are a failure? Are there any times when you've succeeded or done something well?
I guess there are. Before all of this started, I was doing pretty well at work. My manager even gave me positive feedback earlier this year.
That's really important to remember. So, while it's true that you've been struggling recently, it doesn't mean that you are a complete failure. You've had successes in the past, and this current difficulty doesn't define you. How does it feel to think of it that way?
It feels better. I guess I hadn't thought about the times when I was doing well.
Exactly. When we are feeling down, our minds tend to focus only on the negative, but we often overlook the evidence that contradicts those negative thoughts. By challenging these thoughts and finding a more balanced perspective, we can start to shift how you feel.
That makes sense. So instead of, I'm a failure, I could think something like, I'm struggling right now, but I've done well before, and I can improve.
That's a great alternative thought, Ritika. It's more balanced and realistic. How do you feel when you think about it that way?
I feel a little more hopeful. It doesn't seem as final as, I'm a failure.
I'm really glad to hear that. This is something we'll keep practicing, and over time, it will get easier to catch those negative thoughts and replace them with more realistic ones. For now, I'd like to give you a tool to help track your thoughts during the week. It's called a thought record, and it will help you identify your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in real time, just like we did today. How does that sound?
That sounds helpful. I'd like to try it.
Great. You'll use the thought record to write down situations where you notice negative thoughts, then we'll go over them in our next session. The more we practice, the better we'll get at challenging those thoughts. How are you feeling as we wrap up today's session?
I feel a bit lighter, actually. It's nice to see that I don't have to stay stuck in those negative thoughts.
That's exactly right, Ritika. You're doing great work already by being open to this process. We'll build on this step by step, and I'm here to support you the whole way. I'll see you next week, and we can talk about how the thought record went.
Thank you, Dr. Sakshi. I'll see you next week.